The most anticipated game of 2025 just came out, and the question begs to be asked, does it live up to the crazy amount of hype that it's been generating over the last handful of years? I got something in my eye. Oh boy, that's an eyelash in my eye. Oh, baby. Oh. And they say making videos is easy. You see that shit right there? Wow. Pardon my weakness, I had to excuse myself to the restroom to take care of that. This is a dangerous job. Don't let anyone tell you different. Heroes, really, is a term some people would use when it comes to yapping online. Anyway, Hollow Knight Silksong just came out. This game has been highly anticipated for many, many years, thus there were huge expectations put upon it by people like me, who really liked the first Hollow Knight a lot. So now that the game is here, does it live up to the expectations? Yep. I think so. I actually just finished the game and posted my whole playthrough on my gaming channel, so go check that out. Moist Critical Gaming, best gaming channel on YouTube. I started the game on stream, but finished it off stream because I was just craving more of it. I was addicted to it. So the vast majority of my playthrough is recorded from off-stream gaming, which I've been doing so much more of recently. So I just beat the game and I want to give you my review of it. Or at least, I thought I beat the game. It turns out that there is a secret third act to Hollow Knight Silksong that is unlocked after finishing all of the wishes in the game, which I didn't know. I beat the game, getting to the credits rolling, and I did most of the wishes. I didn't do them all, though. If you do, you unlock the Abyss. So I'm very excited to go back and do that now. That's one of the most beautiful things about Hollow Knight Silksong. I pumped 15 and a half hours into this game, thought I beat it. Turns out there's even more content, even more meat on its bones than I thought, all for only $20. What an incredible fucking deal. The game is just so content rich. It puts a big smile on your face. I do most of my gaming blind. I don't look up a whole lot about the games or like walkthroughs or anything. Occasionally, like with Hollow Knight, there's so many secrets and stuff, I'll look up a few things. But I had no idea that there was even more content after the credits rolled if you did all of the wishes and the prerequisites to unlock it. So now I have even more to go back to and spend even more time in the game with, which I'm really looking forward to because the game is so good. So let's go ahead and dive in here. There's actually been a lot of discussion about this game being like too hard or like really unfair because it's so punishing with how everything does 2 masks worth of damage. For those that don't know anything about the game, your health is measured in masks. So something doing 2 masks worth is a big chunk of your health. And it's led to like this big discussion about, you know, the game being too hard. There's even a mod that I saw going viral that takes out double damage, like the double mask damage thing, which I'm just going to go ahead and tell you right now, that is some fucking Weenie Hut Jr. activity right there. Like, it's not the biggest deal in the world. I'm not the fucking hall monitor here to ensure that you're playing the game the way I want you to play it or whatever. Like, it's you own it, you do what you want with it. Well, you own it to a certain extent in this day and age. There's no such thing as really owning games or whatever. That's a totally separate tangent. Point is, you play it how you want to play it. Yes, the developers intended it to be played this way, out of the box, but if you have more fun taking that and making it easier, I mean, go for it. It's a single-player game. You're not ruining someone else's experience by doing it. I think it is a little bit lame. Like, what's next? You're going to just start cutting the crust off of all your sandwiches? You know, grow up. But piggybacking off of this discussion of difficulty in this game, there is something, and it's kind of like the only complaint I have about Silksong, that I think is a little overdone. And it is the 2 damage enemies. Because basically every common enemy and every single, like, obstacle in the game does 2 masks worth of damage. It's a significant chunk. Even the most throwaway trash mob in like the starting zone will be doing like 2 damage to you. Like, it is a little excessive. Do I think the game is too hard for it? Not necessarily, but it does make it annoying. Because when you are trying to explore and look for secrets or something, or you're doing like a run back to a boss, and the run backs aren't very forgiving. They are pretty long run backs in some cases where your bench is far away from where you died on that boss. So you want to just like breeze through the trash mobs to get back, but the trash mobs fucking clobber you. They wallop you for 2 masks most of the time. That's annoying. And it makes it kind of tedious for the sake of being tedious because it's not hard to kill those trash mobs. You just don't want to spend the time to do it most of the time. So I do understand that complaint. Like, that does become a bit of a headache. Is it the biggest deal in the world? No. But especially in late game, that was like the one thing that would have me frowning. It's like, this was a great boss fight. Unfortunately, I lost. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is having to run back through to get to the boss because I know I'm going to have to go through these fucking trash mobs that'll hit me for 2 masks if I slip up or try and get through them too quickly. That is a little annoying. That's the only actual complaint that I have about the game. The other thing that I wasn't loving in the beginning was with your first crest, your default attacks, your moves in the beginning of the game, you don't have a normal down air. You don't have a normal down needle attack. You always come at angles, which I didn't like. It made pogoing feel really odd to me. It just felt awkward. And as I got better at the game, that was eased. But I always preferred the original Hollow Knight down nail, so that way you could pogo more consistently and it felt more intuitive. When you get to mid-game, you unlock more crests, which are more moves for your needle, and they do have the normal down needle for normal pogoing, as well as other options. So that complaint was completely washed away by the time I made it to mid-game. So I really only have one thing that I didn't love, which is what I just mentioned. Everything else, I adore. I think this is an incredible sequel to the first Hollow Knight game. There were huge expectations placed on this game. I think they delivered. I really think they fucking delivered here. I think they served us a beautiful dish. I think the game is visually stunning. I think the soundtrack goes super hard, especially towards the end of the game. They pull out all the fucking stops. The music goes berserk towards the end of the game. I love the cutscenes that they've added in here. Even though I'm not overly familiar with the lore of Hollow Knight, I really enjoyed the characters here. They were extremely charming. The writing felt good. I liked the story they told here, even though, of course, I didn't grasp all of it, and I did miss things by not finishing all of the wishes and seeing through some of the character storylines. The ones that I did finish were great. The gameplay was smooth. Felt super fucking solid. That's the big star of the show here. I didn't know how much more depth you could give Hollow Knight's gameplay without completely changing its identity, but they found a way. You can schmoove in this game. The movement was really the superstar here. Everything was so fluid, and I really think the skill expression in this game is through the roof. There's probably so many interesting combos and interesting ways of approaching combat that no two players will play the same way. This is not just a super simple game, like a super simple Metroidvania or anything. There is so much depth to what you can do in this game to squeak out damage or even just moving from point A to point B. And with so many new tools at your disposal, you can have entirely different builds than somebody else that are really creative in what they aim to do. For example, in my playthrough, towards the end of the game, I visited the Architect, and one of the things I bought from them was this ability that allows me to summon saws when I do my float, which is when I jump and I hold A, now I've got my cloak fanned out and I'm floating. When I float, saws would come out, which do a lot of damage to anything that they hit. Well, you can actually combo that. You can use that as a really good offensive tool in the middle of punishing an enemy. So what I could do is I could squeak out a lot of additional DPS with this, where I could sprint in, start my sprint attack, which I was using Reaper Crest, which allows me to, when I do that sprinting attack or a dash attack, it hits and then sends me up. So by default, I hit, I get sent up, and then I can immediately float after doing that, so I'm able to squeeze in more damage by floating right after doing it. So I hit, float, which summons the saws, which hits the enemy, and then I can hit again on the way down. I don't need to stay in the air. So I'm able to get 3 hits in there, which I wouldn't be possible without having that there. And there are so many things that you can mix and match in there. Throwable items, obviously, with the tools, but I'm even talking just simple defensive things can completely change the way that you'll approach boss fights or even just destroying trash mobs. Because, the float saws were really good for those really pesky flying enemies that would stay just out of range or just be in a really inconvenient location. Just jump, float, hit them with the saws, and it helped solve the problem. It is just so good, the level of depth that the combat has, and the movement, too. Everything about the gameplay in this feels incredible. I am blown away by how great this game felt to play. I also want to make a mention of the bosses because there's a lot of bosses here, and I really think the vast majority of them are absolutely great. I saw some discussion around one boss in particular, Morwing. He's the flying boss who summons these projectiles that go all cattywampus, and then he penguin belly slides across the entire screen. And people were complaining about how unfair of a boss and how shitty the design was with him. I disagree. I don't think the boss is unfair. He's challenging. He's not a super easy boss, but I think there's nothing in his kit that's unfair or anything. I guess the only thing you could argue is, and this ties back to the double mask damage, when you stun him, he falls, and if you get clipped by his hitbox when he falls, you take double mask damage. That doesn't feel great. I can understand why people might be upset about that in particular, but the boss itself I don't think is like a bad design or anything. I really think 90% of the bosses in this game are really, really well designed and are really fun to fight, and it's also usually coupled with some incredible music. The one exception is there is one section towards the end of the game where the boss fight consists of just fighting like 1,000 things, and that's like the challenge of it. I hated that. And I think anyone that's completed the game is going to know what I'm about to complain about. It's going for one of the melodies. I'm not getting into spoilers for this review because I actually value this game so highly and very much recommend it, especially for the price tag that it's at. But towards the end of the game, you are required to get some melodies, and one of these certain melodies require you to go through this chaotic room, which I think is literally like 12 waves of very like aggressive mobs, many of which do double mask damage. And once you go through, I think it was 5 of those waves, you fight a boss. A big beetle with a big fucking blaster of a mace. And then once you defeat him, you then go through, I think it was 5 more waves of those strong normal mobs in order to get to another boss, which is 2 of those beetles at the same time. So they're coming out double fisting you. And this is on the back of already completing like 11 waves worth of enemies and a boss fight prior. It is very reminiscent of like the Pantheon from Hollow Knight, but this one felt worse to me. It didn't sit super well with me. I was so annoyed because it's just draining. It's not really challenging. Like the beetle itself is easy as a boss, but when you have to couple it with 5 previous waves to like whittle you down, and then you also then fight 2 of them at the same time, it just becomes like a chore and just really feels like shit. Unironically, that was probably the maddest I've been all year going through that room. It took me probably like close to 14 or 15 tries, and each try takes like fucking 15 minutes because there's so many waves. I did not like that at all. But pretty much every other like boss encounter or required room was fine. Like that's not even the only time that you go through like waves and then fight a boss. It's just the other ones was much more reasonable. It's like 3 or 4 waves and then you fight a boss and then you finish the room. Is what it is. That's solid. This was just so many, and you'd fight 3 bosses, 2 at the same time in one case, after so many other waves of just mobs. But yeah, not the biggest deal in the world. I just hated that fucking room in particular and wanted to point it out. Overall, I have nothing but glaze for Hollow Knight Silksong. Overall, I had an amazing time on my first playthrough with Hollow Knight Silksong, and it's not going to be my last playthrough. I'm actually extremely excited to learn that there is an entire other section after all the wishes and stuff. Anyway, it definitely lived up to the hype. At least for me it did. And I recommend it, especially at a $20 price tag. That's great. Anyway, that's about it. See ya.